Hello everybody and welcome to Tech Uploaded. I'm Chris and this is the TUVlog for the first week of June 2014. Okay, so clearly I'm not in my usual location for my vlog. I'm not roaming and I'm not in my office. Well, the reason for that being the office is finally starting to transition for the upgrade to the flooring and the desk and all that good stuff. So it's kind of a disaster in there right now. So I've relocated out here into the main area and it worked out well because all the stuff is already out here for the Z97 unboxing that I just did. From the Asus C97WS board, so that'll be coming up soon. And I just kind of thought I'd take it chill this week and go through some Computex news, because obviously that happened, but covering all that would be impossible. There's so much stuff that happened there, so just kind of cherry picking some of the things that I thought were pretty cool, and then kind of a Q&A, sort of, answering some questions that you had, and then addressing some comments too. So just thought we'd kind of sit down and have a little chat. All right, so first, of course, Computex was this past week, and lots and lots and lots of stuff happened there. I've got to say, man, Corsair put on a show. They had so much stuff. They looked like their space was pretty crazy. So that was pretty cool on their part. You know, I've been to a lot of conferences, not nearly as fun as Computex or E3 or anything like that, but in the industry I work in, I go to a lot of conferences, and there's always those few people that are there that just have the booth that steals the show, and I can't help but feel like Corsair was one of those people at this year's show. But that being said, it seemed like there was a lot of power supplies being announced and pushed. Power supplies and fans and cooling. It's kind of the name of the game this year, it seemed. Everybody was covering that, and it seemed like everybody was releasing something along those lines at the show. So one of the things I actually went through, Corsair put up pretty much an entire webpage for welcome to Computex Taipei, wish you were here. Kind of going through everything that they released. So they've got their RGB keyboards, the K70, K95, then they've got an M65 RGB laser mouse. So they're mechanical keyboards and mice, I guess they're getting the bling bling. And then they did release the HXI series power supplies, so they're high performance power supplies. Like I said, everybody had a power supply. And then the Corsair Carbide Series Air 5, or not 540, that's what I have, the 240, the little baby brother of the 540. So if you watched my unboxing of that, you know that's going to be the case I'm going to be using for my workstation build, using the Z97WS motherboard and like a 780 Ti and some other things. All those parts are coming in now because I've got to wait for Devil's Canyon at the end of the month to do that build. However, now it's got a little bro, the 240. So apparently this is a mini ITX case, so and it's also a micro ATX. So that's nice. The micro ATX, I like the micro ATX form factor on motherboards. It's kind of the best of both worlds. It's not too small. I mean, the ITX has its purpose. Obviously, I used it in my NAS build. I mean, it's definitely a lot of people are a fan of it for a lot of good reasons. But the one thing I don't like about it, obviously, is since it's so small, you've only got that one PCIe X16 lane slot available. So that's kind of a downer if you're looking for expansion. So you've got, you can do either one now. And apparently, if you do ITX in this case, you free up enough room on the bottom to actually put in a radiator so you can do liquid cooling. Speaking of small cases, they also had the 380T, which looks really interesting. Now, this is mini ITX through and through. You're not going to fit anything else in this thing. It's got a little handle on it. I really want to get my hands on this. I might have to bug Corsair about this one and see if I'm a little relentless, if maybe I can get one in to look at by August. I don't know. We'll see. But then there's also the 780T full tower, which looks cool, but probably not going to look at because it's probably a beast. But it's if you're looking for a full tower case, it's a unique look. I'm still not sure how I feel about these yet. They're really different. As much as I hate to say it, NZXT cases, a lot of them are just a little too over the edge for me. And I feel like these Graphite series cases from Corsair kind of merge between their, like the Corsair like 7 or 750 and then maybe the crazy looking like Phantom from NZXT kind of fall in the middle. I like that. It's not too much in either direction. But what's really cool is that looking here, they have their GPU liquid cooling bracket that they just announced. Now, what's neat about this is before this was announced, you pretty much had NZXT with their G10 that you could retrofit to your different CPU or GPUs, and it was kind of universal. Now, I was a little bummed because my 780 classified is too big. It's a custom PCB, So you can't, well, some people are saying you can use the G10, but I don't know. So they got the HG10 now, and it sounds like this one is going to be even more restricted. You're going to have to do it for each card. So I think in order to use this cooler, you're probably in best shape if you have a reference card. And from what Corsair described about this thing, it sounds like it actually utilizes the reference fan. I don't know what the heck's going on with this thing. From the description it had, I'm not really sure what the installation is going to be like on this or what's going on. I mean, I'm looking at the picture here. You can see that it's got an ATI fan on it, or ATI, old school AMD fan on there for what looks like their reference design. And then they just had some flash stuff, and apparently they've got a DRAM cooler as well. So I don't know. It's really nice. I like when manufacturers just go, hey, here's the stuff we did at Computex, so this is coming sometime. So then another interesting thing was Fractal actually announced some all-in-one liquid coolers. So that's, is that a new thing for them? I've never really heard about Fractal all-in-ones. So that is interesting to look at. And then kind of the big one here was Asus. So I'm over here back on a Nantec again looking, and they've got a whole slew of new ROG stuff. Now keep in mind, I'm just going to focus on the motherboard side. Their ROG stuff's like all over the place. They had laptops and little small form factor computers, and I think they even had like keyboard and mice. So, but this is the kind of the thing, because I've been having a lot of you ask me about this. What's up with the Ranger and what's up with the Formula, and are they going to do an impact? Well, this pretty much answers all of that. Yes, all of that's happening. So they did announce the Maximus 7 Ranger, or not Ranger, well, yeah, that too, but the Formula. And the interesting thing about the Formula was apparently it is using a copper block on the cooling for the VRM. So that's a thing. I guess that they were getting some feedback from people. They wanted to have that, so they did. Now, the one that I'm sure everyone's really excited about, guess what's back? The Impact. The Impact's back. So if you were a big fan of the ITX, mini ITX, it's here, and it's pretty much packed. Looking at the picture of it here, wow, loaded that thing up. So you've got your usual riser there for your MPCIe, and one of the interesting things about that is I think it is actually a by 4 on that. Yeah, M.2 by 4. So that's something a lot of people have been asking for, and I think this is the only board that has it because they have enough PCI lane availability, because they're only using that one slot. But it's got that same riser card again for the sound, and apparently it also has the fan headers kind of off doing their own thing as well, so you have more of those available than you did before. What's interesting is there's a new board on the block, the Crossblade Ranger. So looking at this thing, it's an FM2 board, and this thing pretty much looks exactly like what the Z97 Ranger is going to look like, except it's for AMD FM2. So a lot of people, I guess, have been wanting that and asking for it, and they said, all right, back in the day, they did have the Formula, was it the Crosshair? It says on here, Crosshair 4 Formula Z, and that was an AM3 Plus. That came out when the FX series was still fairly new and really the hot chip. And I got to say that FX series really is still having a good run. It's still a good chip. And so now they've got one for everyone that wants to do FM2 Plus. So it looks pretty much identical to the Intel one, except for it's got the AMD mounts on it. And then, of course, the Ranger is also out for the Intel side as well. Has a little bit of a lower cost option, a few features removed, but overall, I think it's a hell of a value. So lots of ROG stuff going on. And like I said, we could go on forever. Noctua was there. They've got their new fans. So, if you've been living under a rock and you're not aware, Noctua came out with new fans. So they've got their server level ones, which really ramp up to a super high RPM. And they kind of resemble the current ones somewhat. I think that's the only one where you can get a static pressure 120, actually. But they're kind of black with like a dark brown. And then you've got the consumer level ones, which strangely enough, I don't think they have the static pressure fan released for. And that comes in like a grayish color. So it's getting away from the really unique color scheme that Noctua had been using, because I think a lot of people were complaining that those were kind of ugly. And I would have to agree. But they're such good fans. I think everybody just put up with it. Finally, here's a weird one. Gigabyte released a board that is just for LN2 liquid nitrogen cooling, which is interesting. The GA Z97X SoC Force LN2. This board only has 2 DIMMs for memory, and they're placed super, super close to the CPU socket so that you can cool them better when you're actually doing LN2. And it doesn't even have mounts, like holes for mounting a standard cooler. And I don't think you'd even be able to get one on as close as that memory sits. So I just was kind of going, man, you must be super into competitive overclocking to purchase something like that, because wow, interesting product. Didn't see, that was like maybe one of the biggest oddball things that came out of the show for me, is I was like, whoa, Gigabyte really getting serious about their competitive overclocking. All right, then questions. So I kind of just took a list of things that I've been getting asked quite a bit and thought, all right, go ahead and address them now. So one of the big ones, since I did the video on, well, I did two different videos on Z97, and my most recent one was the Devil's Canyon announcement. And there's a bug on my keyboard. Problem solved. So, I said, upgrade your GPU before you do anything else if you are looking to gain some performance in your gaming, because that's going to be your best bang for the buck. And a lot of people apparently listen, so that's good. But I've also been getting a lot of questions. If I do a 780 or 780 SLI and I'm running, like, say, an i7 920 or maybe a Sandy Bridge, and I'm still on PCIe 2.0 lanes instead of the 3.0, am I going to see a bottleneck going with SLI if I got 2x8 PCIe 2? I hate the word bottlenecking, people. Just, you're not going to bottleneck. Yeah, you might bottleneck like a teeny bit. You're not going to notice the performance increase you're going to see from putting in that kind of a GPU, even in an early i7 like a 920. It's going to be worth it. You're going to see a nice improvement, especially if you're running a card that was released around the same time as you got that chip. I mean, it's going to be a huge bump for you. So, you're not going to want to go out and get a Devil's Canyon chip and then throw a 3-generation old GPU in there. There's no point. So don't worry about bottlenecking. Just upgrade in a normal, I guess, progression of hardware. So go from most bang for the buck to least, and just kind of go in that order, because that's going to make the most sense. You want to be satisfied with an upgrade, and if you're going with dual 780 and you're doing an SLI on that, you're already in the neighborhood of $1,000 on your upgrade. So don't worry about it. You're going to like it. Now, if you're running like a Core 2 Duo, don't run a Core 2 Duo. Just upgrade that. Another one, Sabertooth versus ROG versus the WS, the workstation board. These are the three big ones that seem to be getting a lot of attention. I feel really bad for just the general Z97 line of boards from Asus, like the Z97A or the Z97 Pro, or even the Deluxe. They're not getting a lot of attention. And actually, that Z97A at like $150 is a really good value. It has the SATA Express, it has the M.2, it's got SLI. I mean, it's a nice board. And I think it's getting overlooked a lot, which is unfortunate. But to go back to the questions, since these are the big ones that keep getting pointed out, the differences between these boards. So your ROG board, which I went over, is more geared towards gamers, but all of these boards are so similar. You really got to split hairs to kind of get down to what the difference is between all of them. So you're going to have some features on the ROG board, such as like you've got the Keybot. You've got Keybot, for your macros, and you've got a little bit of a different UEFI setup, not hugely so, but and then some of the software is tweaked. The sound card on that particular board, at least the 7 Hero, is tweaked, so you've got different sound stages and all that good stuff. So there's more gaming-oriented things in there, whereas the TUF series is taking things kind of in a different direction. So they're going to start putting on components that are really long life components, and maybe a little bit thicker PCB, and they're giving those boards a 5-year warranty. Now, the key thing to note here is then when you go back down to the Z97 series, or you go up to the workstation class, you do get the dynamic overclocking that you don't get on the TUF and the ROG. So you can actually just set your CPU to automatically overclock, and the software is going to go through and take a look at that and figure out exactly where it can get your CPU under 1.3 volts before everything starts to freak out and you get instability. Those kind of features are missing from the TUF and the ROG, but they all have their particular niche, but it is getting kind of confusing for which one you would want to select, because the entire line is pretty loaded up. So just read up, do your research. If you want to have a really easy automatic overclock, then go with just the Z97 series, like A, Pro, Deluxe. Or if you like the look of the ROG, go that way. The TUF series look is also really unique. If you want a nice warranty, go TUF. And if you want a board that is just going to probably do anything you want, shell out the cash, get a workstation board. Not exactly a looker, but a worker. Another big one is the side panel with all of the cables on the H440 hard to close. Yes, it's incredibly difficult to get that thing closed. Even with really good cable management, it is very hard to get that door closed, and I actually hate having to take it off, and unfortunately you have to quite a bit on the H440 because the NZXT design team made it so that the drives face the back so that you had that nice plate on the front. And that makes it so if you change any drives, you've got to get back there and you got to take off that dreaded side panel. If you're thinking about doing an H440 build, highly recommend that you find a power supply that actually allows you to use flat cables for the 24-pin. If you get that 24-pin cable flat, that makes all the difference in the world because that baby is what really gets in the way. All right, then this one's a little bit deep. I got a question today actually asking me, Intel versus AMD, what's the deal here? If there was another CPU manufacturer on the scene, maybe like a Japanese or Taiwanese chip manufacturer that came into the space, would I think that's a good thing? Well, yeah, I do. I mean, if there was somebody else in the mix, I think that would help. The problem with that is it's kind of the same issue that I think AMD is facing right now is Intel just has gobs and gobs of money for R&D. And Intel's already got stuff designed that we won't see for a couple of years. They're not stupid. They release stuff in an orderly fashion to make the most money. That's why we're seeing Haswell Refresh, Devil's Canyon, Broadwell, Haswell E, Skylake. I mean, all of this stuff's happening in like less than an 18-month window. It's a way for them to do all the different chipsets, 8 series, 9 series, 100 series, X99. So that's kind of a bummer that Intel kind of, they do that, but I understand why. They have gotten some flack for some antitrust issues, and I think that's just simply because they're not in check. It kind of goes back to the Microsoft days when they were kind of doing that kind of thing. I really actually prefer AMD just for the simple fact they're the underdog, and I like to root for the underdog, and I was really excited for them in 1999, 2000, when they were the first one on the scene at 1 gigahertz. And when the K7 Athlon series was really rocking, and it was kind of spanking Intel a little bit at that point in time. And then somewhere along the line, they just kind of started to fall off. And now Intel definitely has the upper hand on speed when it comes to the higher end chips. Now, I think AMD's done a lot of good things for budget builds. Their A10, like Kaveri and all that stuff, those are really good chips, actually, if you're looking to do a budget system. And then they just had those really low end, like Athlon and Semperon chips come out that you can get a motherboard and a chip together for like $70 or something really crazy cheap. So they're kind of in the space where if you're looking more for a budget build, they've got you covered. But yeah, I don't know. Let's just think back here. Everybody remember Cyrix? Remember those chips that disappeared? Maybe. Well, they were around from like mid 80s to late 90s. They made some chips, and they kind of went head to head with Intel. And then all of a sudden, AMD comes out with like the K6 and all that stuff. And then it was like, oh boy, there goes Cyrix. And I think that would kind of be the situation we'd be in now. It'd be very hard for a chip manufacturer to come onto the scene now and compete with the AMD and Intel battle. I mean, look at even what happened to Motorola. They just couldn't keep up with Intel. And, as much as Apple, I think, hated to make that decision because they dissed Intel for so long, in the earlier part of the 2000s, back when I was still in college is when this was going down, they made the switch to Intel, and it was this big hoopla because they dropped the Motorola series chips because the big talk back then was, are you going to do a G5 in a notebook? And they just couldn't get there. They couldn't make it happen. And I think that's why they ended up moving over to Intel because they needed to get those MacBook Pros, and nobody else could really do it for them. So, and I think they did look at AMD at that time as well. All right, then finally, fun with comments. So I've gotten some really interesting comments. Lookalikes. So my doppelgangers, I guess. I've gotten Mr. Rogers, and the one I've gotten the most is John Cryer, and I can definitely see the John Cryer thing. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing kind of an Alan Harper-esque shirt today, so maybe I'm going particularly Alan Harper-esque. Trying to look at my hair in the monitor there. Maybe it's a little long, but I am kind of going bald on top, so yeah, all the qualities are kind of there for that. Then the weird one, the bunny from Hoodwinked. I have no idea what that is, but I need to figure it out. But I don't know. What is Hoodwinked? Guess I could Google it. And then some other comments. I've had a few people complain that I talk too fast, and yes, I do. I talk fast. I like to get things out there. I have a lot of crap going on in my head, and I just like to spew it out there. So if you think I talk too fast, that's not something that's probably going to change. So I apologize if it's annoying to you, but you probably need to move on to somebody that slows down a little bit, because I'm just not going to slow down. Except for right now, maybe I can talk a little slower. Is that good? This table creaks like a sinking ship. I really need to get a new table. And it's looking rough, too. There's actually a star pattern in here from when I jammed a screwdriver into it when I was mad. So I can't do that if I get a new table. Some of you have said that you're happy I reply to your comments, and I hope to be able to continue to do that. So continue to leave your comments, and I'll do my best to get to all of them. I try to make a couple of sweeps a day through the comments section. YouTube's really buggy about comments, though. So like if you comment on something that's kind of an older video, I may get the email notification about it, but then trying to find it in my comment stream can be difficult. Another thing, if you leave a comment with a question and you want me to respond, make sure your YouTube settings are set so that I can respond to it. Sometimes I get questions and I have no way to actually address you, and strangely enough, if I do like plus and then put your name, a lot of times there's 4 or 5 people with the same name as you have, which I'm not sure how that works. I think it's that whole damn Google Plus integration gets everything all screwy. So it's hard for me to actually address you if you don't have it turned on so that I can. At some point, I'm sure I will actually end up doing a website with like a forum kind of setup or something to make things a little bit easier. But for now, I'm going to stick to just doing it on YouTube comments. So make sure I can actually reply to you, or just send me a message directly in my YouTube inbox, or send me a message on Facebook, or send me a message on Twitter. And then last, but certainly not least, I need an intro. And this was something that I knew was going to come up at some point in time. I'm almost 50 videos in, and you know, it's getting time. I need to get something together. So fear not, I will put together some kind of intro. Not really sure what I'm feeling right now. Maybe like a montage of some of the videos of all the different things I do, and then like maybe say like overviews, builds, reviews, blah, and then have the. You following me here? This is just kind of me just going off the deep end here, and then maybe like tech uploaded and the arrow coming up. I don't know. I got a lot of stuff going on in my head. It's like I said, I talk fast because there's a lot of stuff going on up here. So I need to come up with an intro, though. So if anybody has any suggestions, things maybe you'd like to see in the intro, maybe the bunny from Hoodwinked, I don't know. Let me know so I can try to get working on that, because I need to make that happen sooner than later to kind of get official. If you know, official? Can I be official? I'm officially tech uploaded. Okay, so now I'm just getting weird. I admit it. I should probably get going. So as always, thanks for watching. And if you enjoy these TU vlogs, please go ahead and click on that subscribe button. And you know what? You can also follow me on Twitter over Tech Uploaded. And you know what? Don't be a stranger. Check back soon. Serious.